in the very powerful region here in Northeast Wisconsin on the Oneida Reservation in my home community at the Midwest office. I didn't get the memo, so I didn't bring my LA Dodger baseball hat. And I'm still waiting for my Laker jersey. It's going to be in the mail soon. So
another one?
Yeah, of course, my Dodgers are down 0-2, so that's not good. So we got to breathe some life into them. So I've had the honor here of giving some opening comments here, and it's again, it's a great honor to be able to speak with you folks today. You know, I talk about Oneida because that's where I've been for the most part of the last 8 months. We did drive to Washington, D.C., and that was a memorable trip. Had a couple stops along the way. We're going to continue to do the get out and vote message. I want to give her a hand. We would continue to do the get out and vote message locally and regionally, but we're not going to move around too much until we get a little bit of a safer high sign, so to speak. But I have a 81-year-old mother that is in our community, and I see her way too often driving by. So she's safe and sound as far as I know, and last I checked. My father has been in the nursing home for a good part of 20 years. He's 88 years old, and the last I checked on him, he's safe, even though our nursing homes sometimes we're worried about. But so far in Oneida, we're safe and sound. And my wife has had a couple of days off, and she's went right back to work immediately and trying to do her best to help our nation with our financial financial challenges related to this pandemic and helping the tribe access the COVID relief money. So, you know, I've got my son Brandon is the vice chairman of the tribe, and not needless to say that he has a lot on his plate. I have a big giant family. Everybody's working every single day to take care of their children. You know, our moms and dads of this world, mostly moms and maybe aunties and grandmas I've got those kids on the webinars and teaching them at home. So it's a real different kind of world today. But you know, Indian country's seen challenge before, and I think that we're doing well considering the circumstances. So I just wanted to again welcome everybody, and again talking about my family and the folks around me. You know, it's really been an interesting 8 months. The last 8 months, it's really been since we established a national public health emergency and economic crisis. We had no idea going into this thing that what it was going to be like. And you know, in Indian country, I think we always just count on our leaders and the people around us going to make it work and fix it. And this has been the biggest challenge that we've seen in any one of our lifetimes. And our leaders are doing it, but they're mostly trying to maintain it and fix it and take care of us immediately. We don't know where we're at right now, and I think it really kind of changes how we interact in our world. So I've always said that, you know, whether it's physically or financially or mostly spiritually, and I've said before, it really, our blessings and our prayers are really on the front line right now. So we have to look out for our family and our young ones and our elders, and that's why I talk about mine. You know, our ancestors experienced pandemics after European contact, but in modern times, we've only read about pandemics or watched it on TV. And so this is not a myth or legend anymore. It's bad and it's terrifying, and it's become a historical accounting of our lives. And you know, I worry about my grandchildren seeing this world, and we're right in the middle of it. And I don't know how much my grandchildren understand that, but you know, they're big-eyed and always watching and listening and learning. But I think too much of our adults are the same way, and we really got to get our team together. So and we have to take the lead and be on the front line and not wait for somebody else or blame it on somebody else. We have to help our leaders lead. So you know, it really is not. I'm a big fan of our tribal leadership throughout this whole country. And at the same time, I understand their responsibility, and I support the leaders, and certainly trying to figure out these challenges and different things that they have to go through. You know, in March, when the tribes and the governors and the federal government started to close and temporary close, again, I thought it was just going to be short. And you know, our tribal leaders work cooperatively with the state and the federal government, and together to protect our communities and to protect our customers and protect our employees. I think it's really a great example of what we can do when we're up against challenge. It was very, very heartwarming to see the leadership in such a humble and immediate kind of way step up to protect us all. You know, I'm really blessed. Even though that where I sit right now is one of the top hotspots in this whole country. You know, that's hotspot fluctuated, you know, started out in the Northwest and, you know, into the Great Plains and down in Navajo and the Pueblos are, you know, still tough for them. But the blessing I have is if I need a policeman or if I need an ambulance, you know, I only got to wait a few minutes. A good part of Indian country has a long wait to even have these kinds of access, and still trying to figure out good quality lifestyles and things at their immediate call. So I'm really blessed, and I'm safe, and I'm secure. And again, my prayers and blessings out to the rest of Indian country. And so the mission of the National Indian Gaming Association has always been to protect and preserve tribal sovereignty and the ability for tribes to engage in gaming to provide for our communities. In the face of this coronavirus pandemic, our priority continues to keep our industry intact, continue to see economic growth, and provide essential vital services to tribal citizens and for the betterment of our people through tribal government gaming. Through these times, our team continues to stand ready in Washington, D.C. on the front line and doing everything we can to, again, access support, to help us, and to stand by our tribe, our employees, and our economic well-being. So, you know, it's a different kind of world, but I'm guarantee you, however they're moving in Washington, D.C., we're moving right with them. And credit to Executive Director Jason Giles, who's on the call today. He's pretty been manning the station, so to speak. And you know, we've done a lot of this whole Zoom and webinar. Like I said, I've got one a board meeting going on in the other room as I'm doing this, and who knows what the rest of the day holds. And so, but I wanted to emphasize that we continue to move through these times of uncertainty and working hard on behalf of tribal government gaming and behalf of our tribes. A priority is through communication, and whether it's our gaming commissioners, our regulators, our industry experts, our elected leaders, we're all in this together, and we all count on each other to be able to get through this. And communication and that kind of advocacy is what we have. And so I think folks know we've done different kinds of meetings and fundraisers and different things of that nature through the Zoom calls. And so the Capitol Hill folks, they know that they are receptive to what we call Indian country messaging, and whatever that means. They know we're here, and they know we're ready to work at whatever level we can. And I tell you what, you know, we've even had a few people that are still coming by the office. You know, we have a great facility there in DC, and while it's quiet, we're still moving slow in the nation's capital. You know, people still have to work. So I think that one of the things I'd like to make clear, and as I wind down my presentation this morning, is that we will remain on the front line of Washington, D.C. to work on behalf of our member tribes. We'll continue to advocate for more COVID-19 relief money, and we will not rest until Indian country returns to some type of normalcy. Through this time, we've been reminded that the faceless pandemic does not discriminate. It takes lives regardless of race, gender, status, or political stature. We sometimes take it for granted or ignore the basic fact that this crisis, but this crisis has reminded us that we are all God's children. We have to be tough, and we have to be strong. We have to be resilient. And again, we're all in this together. Keeping keeping a real simple concept that we are all in this together, all of us. And while the virus will take its place in history, we must use this challenge as a wake-up call to work together to build a better place for generations to come. So please, even today, you know, the last thing I'll say is pretty much, you know, pretty methodical, but the mask and the social distance, the family, you know, stay close to home, you know, keep especially your elders out of these atmospheres that may cause this virus to spread. It's really, you know, like I said, I'm in the hot spot here we're usually a hot spot for football. I don't know if you can see on my left there, you can see that's a Bart Starr signed Super Bowl trophy there on my left. Well, my friend Bart Starr has gone on to the spirit world. He's a classic, true example of what a warrior is. And if you could see over my other shoulder here, Rick Hill is looking over my shoulder, and I got this helmet here that Tim Wapato, the late Tim Wapato, gave to Rick when we started created our presence in Washington, D.C. And he said, Rick, we're going to war, and we're going to create a better tomorrow for the gaming tribes. We're going to be strong in Washington, D.C. And they've lived by that. And again, when Rick moved to into California a few years ago, he dug us out of his basement, and he told me the story, and he brought it to me. And for those of you who don't know, right before the pandemic, our great and beautiful friend Rick Hill went to the spirit world. So I've been looking at that picture, just, you know, wondering what would Rick do. So Rick would be a warrior. He would take it on, and he would be the front line. And that's what we are. That's what I keep telling myself. So, you know, I think in conclusion, I just want to have my acknowledgement to the tribal leadership out there. I know it's tough, and people can't figure out why we can't recreate these jobs and recreate this industry like that. It's going to take time. It's going to take us working together. And so rather than be impatient with our leadership, understand their role. They didn't take those jobs from us. The pandemic took them from us. It's up to them and up to us to rebuild Indian country. And I think we're doing it at a pretty decent pace. The other part about it is, again, closes, but I think this is my third or fourth conclusion, Victor, but get out and vote. This is key.
Very good one.
Important times in our life right now. And if anybody hears my message and if they're willing to help us do that, give me an email at estevens@indiangaming.org, and I will send you a Get Out and Vote t-shirt from us. And again, the final thing I'll say is blessings to those elders, to those frontline guys, those policemen that got a call. If I call, they're by my side. If I have a fire, they're there for me. Those people that are waiting on folks in the restaurant, and those people trying to get back to work. Those are really our true blessings, and that's where we really count on you guys as a team, that we got to lend a hand and do the best we can to rebuild our world. And I promise you that I'm here. I'm on the front line at your beck and call. Thank you, everybody. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Wow. You know, again, welcome everyone. I'm Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles, the Executive Director of the National Game Association. This is the new normal. As you can see, we did things a little different this time. We started out with our esteemed chairman, Ernie Stevens, to give us a little message of hope and inspiration, because I thought that this segment was going to be too gruesome. And so I just wanted to cheer everybody up before we jump into the weeds. So again, welcome. Today on our show, we're going to be talking to our friends, and actually this is a follow-up from when we talked to our friends James Klas and Matthew Robinson of KlasRobinson Q.E.D. And Jason, how you doing, brother?
Good. Just wanted for them to break it down for us.
Yeah, gentlemen, welcome back. How are you doing?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you know, the last time we spoke, you know, you were some of our first guests on our first handful of shows, and you know, when we were talking, there wasn't a lot of facts out there. We were just getting open. We were trying to assess what was going to happen with the available information that we had now. But since then, I don't think anybody could have predicted the politics of the pandemic being playing out like this. Well, maybe you could have, but it's just really has been a worst case scenario, in the sense that, the politics of health and safety is very uneven across the country. Can you guys tell us a little bit about what you've learned since we last spoke?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you again for the opportunity to do this. When we were on last time, we had finished a white paper on healing tribal economies, and that was in June. And at that point, as you said, the information was limited, and there was a lot of assumptions that had to be made, assumptions about what would happen with the pandemic, assumptions about what would happen with the economy and how government and business and individual people would respond to that. We do have some more information now. There's still plenty that is unknown yet. Probably the most significant piece that's hanging out there right now is when we will get some form of vaccine and how effective it will be. Probably the second most significant piece that's hanging out there right now is coming up in 3 weeks, what's going to happen with the election. But we do have more information than we did, and there is some good news, but there's also some bad news. And a lot of things are moving pretty close to what we thought would happen, but there have been some surprises. And so that's what we're going to try to talk about a little bit today. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and hopefully this will pop up for you, and we will be able to see it. Does everybody see a slide that says economic impact, October 14th, et cetera?
Not yet. Do you see it? Oh, maybe I did.
Got it. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we did publish an update here. We published it at the end of last month. It is available again on our website, as is the original, which has much more discussion than the update does. But basically, I was going to categorize in a nutshell, the course of the pandemic itself, of the disease, caseloads, fatality rates, et cetera, has been disappointing, surprisingly bad. The course of the economy has been in some ways worse than expected this year, in others better. But the recovery prospects are the thing that are probably the most promising. There's definitely strong signs that at all levels, business leaders, individuals, there's a strong desire to resume economic activity as soon as possible, as safely as possible. The as possible parts of that are the things that we seem to be disagreeing on to some degree. But just to walk through the pandemic side first, we originally were assuming that we would have somewhere between 5 and 6 million cases and somewhere between 200 and 250,000 deaths by next May. That was not a correct assumption. We blew past those numbers. We haven't quite blown past the death rate, the death number yet, but we've already blown past the case rate. We're still the #1 country in the world for cases. I think eventually we're going to be passed by India. We're still the #1 country in the world for deaths. Hard to say at this point. We may not be passed by Brazil or India on that front, but they may eventually catch up with us given the caseloads. These are figures as of August 31st. And of course, now we're well into October, so they're much higher even than what's on the graph. They'd be off the top of the graph. In terms of, if you just look at the countries that had at least 100,000 cases, throw out the smaller countries, et cetera, we were right in the middle in terms of the case fatality rate. So the percentage of deaths, or the ratio of deaths to cases recorded, we were right in the middle of the pack on that. But in terms of deaths per 100,000 people, or deaths per capita effectively, we were in the top 10 worldwide. I think we were, number 7. And so a couple of European countries and some South American countries are ahead of us at that level. And that's been holding fairly steady. One of the things that you hear a lot about now is positivity rates. The goal in some places is 10%, other places it's 5%. And also the amount of testing per capita. There's been a lot of talk about how much testing has been done. The U.S. has done more total tests than anybody else. In terms of testing per capita, though, we're 5th out of the top 10. So we're certainly way up there compared to the whole world, but we're not number 1 in terms of per capita testing. And unfortunately, our positivity rate, the number of positive tests or percentage of positive tests, is still high. It's over 8%, and it's higher than anybody else in the top 10 except Qatar. It's certainly higher than some of the other major countries, United Kingdom, Russia, Australia, etc. So still having some issues there. So we still do believe that by next May, roughly, is when the real serious effects of the pandemic will have eased. Not that it will be completely gone, but we don't believe that it will be severe enough at that point to be having any acute crisis level type effects on the economy. What we'll be left with is long-term changes to how we do business, long-term changes to public health standards, and long-term changes to business methods. But the acute phase of the crisis will be well over by then. And we'll be talking about, we'll be into the recovery process already, and we'll be talking about how that works. There are still potential peak loads coming. There's, it's shifting through the country more. Right now, Midwest, a lot of rural areas are getting hit for the first time. But eventually, we will pass that by. Depending upon the timing of the vaccine and the spread of it, there could be a very serious peak right around and right after the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, or we might be able to duck that. It's a little hard to say, but we're now looking at, our assumption now is that we're going to have almost 15 million cases by next May in total, have had a total of about that, and about 375,000 deaths from the virus by then. And from that point forward, there may be a few, there'll still be some small bits here and there, but the worst part of it will be, should be over by then. So that's the assumption underpinning a lot of our updated analysis. Now, when it came, and Chairman made reference to this earlier, everybody closed. That's not the Marianas Trench or the Grand Canyon. That's a graph of Indian casinos in operation, and through basically April, from a period in March until a period in May, but for all of April for the most part, everybody was closed. Since that time, this is as of July, so since that time, a large number of them have reopened, almost 400 as of July. Now it's probably closer to the 450. Just about everybody's reopened in some form. There were a couple of open, close, open incidents early on. But the good news is that once people have gotten open, and once people have gotten things running and got kind of the shakeout the first month or so here, there has definitely been a strong indication that people want to come back. People want to gamble. And so the ancillary facilities, the food and beverage, the hotels, obviously concerts and events, they're still doing much worse. But on the gaming floor, for what we're seeing, somewhat statistically, somewhat anecdotally, is that most places that are fully reestablished now are running somewhere between 5 and 15% below what they were running before for the comparable period. So say July, August, September, 5 to 15% range below last year, not 25, certainly not 50%, the kind of capacity constraints that have been put on. And that's very encouraging. That's good news for the gaming industry. Mask acceptance, which has become kind of the main thing now, is wearing masks, has really been pretty good. We haven't had many of the ugly incidents that you've heard about, or you heard about early on in some other industries. Employees seem to be doing pretty well. Customers seem to be doing pretty well. A lot of casinos are going with no smoking or larger no smoking areas in order to reduce the amount of time that people have to take their masks down. Everybody is getting used to it now. The operating patterns are starting to stabilize. People have figured out how they're going to do it instead of just shutting every other machine down or something like that. They've got plexiglass at the tables and have changed the seating. A lot of them are doing reduced seats rather than reduced machines. So all the machines are running, but there just aren't as many chairs as there were before. They're also controlling their entrances. So there's only one main entrance. They're taking temperatures and doing things like that. They're controlling their parking capacity. And so that's how they're maintaining the capacity constraints or meeting the capacity constraints. And that seems to be working pretty well. Unfortunately, on the ancillary side, food and beverage, lodging are still very much depressed. Lodging is doing a little better than food and beverage. Food and beverage is definitely taking it. The worst of all, of course, is any kind of convention, any kind of entertainment event, any kind of sports event, etc. It's just really hard to do that right now. And so that's just still almost completely closed or very, very minimal. There are definitely still risks out there, though. There are risks of surges, as I said before. There are risks of seeing increased negative economic effects as the days of the stimulus package have, the ones that were originally passed are long since gone, and all of their effects are wearing off. And it's during the election cycle, seems to be very hard for there to be agreement on any kind of new stimulus package. And absent that, we tend to agree with the Federal Reserve Chairman that that's really critical, that some fiscal stimulus is needed. Absent that, you're going to see more job losses. You're going to start to see some of the vacancies in commercial buildings and apartment buildings or inability to pay rent turn into evictions, turn into foreclosures. And those are risks that are still out there. However, when all is said and done, we have improved slightly. It's still bad, but we've definitely improved our outlook for the industry, look for the Indian gaming industry. We're now looking at a revenue decline for this year of only, if you can say only, 31.2%. That's actually better than we were before. Still, yeah,
I think last time you had like 22 billion, didn't you? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it's come up a couple billion. It's come up. I'll show you on the next slide, but the ancillary revenue decline is still about the same, about 38.8%. We do expect the recovery to move a little faster next year than we thought it would, and we do think complete recovery is going to come a little earlier in 2022 instead of end of the year, probably middle of the year, and then we're going to be pretty much in 2023. We're going to be back into what we would hope to be and expect to be a growth cycle. The way that looks now, for 2020, we're now coming in about 24 billion for gaming revenue. I think we were about 22 and change before. The good news is that by 2022 now, we're looking at being all the way back up to 35 billion, which is where we estimated we were in 2019. The NIGC statistics aren't out, but that's about where we think will come in. So 31, we're back in the 30s again as early as 2021. We're at 35 billion by 2022. You'll see that the red bars, which are the total revenue, gaming plus ancillary facilities, they don't come back quite as fast. We do think there are going to be some lingering negative effects. And we do think that some of the capacity and changes in the ways of doing business that are going to survive the pandemic and linger afterwards, we do think that will have some effect on the balance of gaming versus other components in the casino. And so that will be still held down a little bit. In terms of other economic areas, the gray block on the right is what we were projecting back in June of this year. The white or unshaded block on the left is what we're now predicting as of September of this year. Most of them, if you scan it down, are pretty close to the same. The Indian gaming and the other tribal tourism the gaming is better than what we thought. The tribal tourism is actually a little worse than what we thought. but it does recover quickly as well. We do expect that. That's a combo of gaming coming back faster, and also the fact that so much of tribal tourism is in rural areas and has outdoor elements to it. And those are things that are definitely favorable right now. RVing, for instance, is just taking off like crazy. Golf is actually coming back. So a lot of outdoor type activities. The unemployment rate is not as bad as we thought. That's directly due to the particular way that the stimulus packages were structured originally. They focused extensively on employment, and they succeeded. And so the unemployment is still bad, but it's not as bad as we thought. The inflation on the other side is actually looking to be a little higher than what we thought it was going to be. That's a combination of watching what has happened with the stimulus. We could have, and normally with the kind of downturn we had, would have seen some deflationary pressure during these last few months. It did not materialize primarily because of the fiscal stimulus packages, secondarily because of the Federal Reserve's actions. And the Fed has already very clearly signaled that they're just not going to worry about inflation for probably the next 2 or 3 years at a minimum, unless it were to somehow spiral out of control, which nobody's expecting. So we do expect inflation to actually be slightly higher. For most of the rest of the industry sectors for tribes, if you look at the comparisons, basically this year is a little worse. Next year, the recovery is a little faster. And by 2022, we're very close to the same place that we thought we would be. We still think for the most part, it's going to be in about the same places, maybe slightly worse or slightly better, depending upon the industry. In terms of the timing of the phases, we're pretty much still on the same track. We're still in the initial phase. We're starting to flirt with the transitional phase this month. We're sort of crossing over into that with a little clearer, a little more stable changes in operating policies, changes in floor layouts, et cetera. Some reopening of some things, some easing of capacity restrictions. Obviously, there's fluctuation. If you get a spike in an area, it's going to go back. And then if it eases, it's going to loosen up. But we're moving into that, but we're not out of this sort of crisis mode yet. Probably won't be through the end of this year. Next year, you're going to see that transitional phase, things stabilizing, comfort levels rising, ancillary facilities reopening to a greater degree, some of the space changes being turned into more permanent space changes. And then the recovery, we still expect to start mid to late next year and extend all the way through 2022. By 2023, we should all be looking at this in our rearview mirror, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise.
Wow, 2023, you're saying?
Well, by that time, we'll be back in growth mode. 2022, we should be pretty much done or into the, well settled on recovery, getting back to where we were in 2019. Just so you know, our definition of recovery, it's not the sort of the same definition that the Bureau of Economic Analysis uses for recessions, et cetera. It's really when we get back to where we were. So it's not when we're on the upswing. We're already in some instances on the upswing. It's when we get back to where we were. So that's what we're looking for by 2022, 2023 with new growth.
I posted an article last night, and they're talking about Montana, where the bars and the restaurants are closing again, and this is a place where they would really no masks, no more personal freedom, like South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana. Now they're all starting to reap what everybody predicted is starting to happen. And you're starting to see when you don't have stricter requirements, you're starting to see the areas, they're having these outbreaks and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. The articles, they're talking about this concept of, individuality and personal freedoms, but they're also talking about laying off their employees now and not being able to have the kind of business and stuff. So, it seems to me that the really tough medicine that we need to really move forward is not really happening in this country. Now, I noticed with a lot of tribes, you see the tribes have been a lot more stringent than a lot of states and communities. How has that played out for the tribes?
I think, I think, you know, they have protected their people. They are still doing well as they've reopened their gaming floor with their restrictions. You know, you've seen that there's some positive impact there. So I think it's been going great. Matt, you had to do some work out in the Dakotas, and you were seeing the checkpoints.
Yeah. So what was really helpful, or I guess it actually made me happy. So Jim and I, we're based in the Twin Cities, and for the most part, it's fairly liberal. Outside of the Twin Cities, as you leave the Twin Cities, there's less and less masks, no masks, kind of getting to the rural areas. What was really, you know, for each reservation that I've visited since the virus has started, depending on the reservation, whether it's walking into a building, having to have my temperature checked, mandatory masks, tribes are taking this seriously, and not just for governmental facilities, but also for the casinos themselves. You know, some of the reservations I visited since Corona started, they've got roadblocks up. God bless them, because, you know, they want to know who I was, and, you know, obviously, hopefully it's not the feds and crazy stuff like that, but they want to know who I was, who I had the meeting with. And, you know, I just wish everyone would take this virus as seriously as tribes have taken it, because I think that is essential for continued success. I mean, gaming is the lifeblood for a lot of tribes, and, you know, it's them taking this virus seriously is what's going to enable them to continue operating.
You know, it seems like the future of the industry really relies on us creating these safe spaces, and, you know, we're fighting against the politics of health and safety, you know. And as we know, you know, we have an election coming up in 3 weeks, and it's not going to be solved if Joe Biden wins, you know. And I think it might even get worse. More people are going to dig in and become more entrenched in their ideas of health and safety, and, you know, that's not a good thing. And I think where the tribes have an opportunity here is to show what that looks like. It's not that difficult to have stricter requirements, to be more stringent. But I think the benefit is that people do see that the tribes the casinos, believe it or not, have stricter requirements than their local Costco or Target or Walmart. You know what I mean? And with the same amount of people too. You know what I mean? Or probably even less, you know?
Yeah, no, it's, you know, on the prescription side of the equation, on the things to do, things to help, tribes are definitely taking care. They're definitely altering their use of space. They're focusing on top-end customers, some of the stuff that you can see on the screen there. And I think that's important, and I think it's paying off, and I agree with you. I think it is providing some leadership to, you know, some examples to the rest of the world, because the bottom line is you can, just because you don't shut things down from a governmental perspective doesn't mean you won't be shut down by the virus. We're seeing
Right.
that clearly now. It will come, it will have an impact. The question is, how long will it last, and how carefully organized and planned will it be? Will it just be willy-nilly and putting out fires wherever they pop up, or will there be some sort of structure and some sort of process to it? And, you know, I think tribes are seeing that. We talked a little bit before in our original analysis about the need to make changes in space, and we've talked so far about how casinos have been doing it. One of the things that we emphasized, and we wrote an article about this, I think it was in July's issue of Indian Gaming Magazine, might have been August. But when you look at the cost of building space, even though it seems high, $500, $600, $700 per square foot, whatever, if you do the math, the space that you need to add to your floor in order to allow you to have the same number of gaming machines, but have them spaced properly apart, or have the customers spaced properly apart, the return on having those gaming machines back is really pretty high. If you wanted to pay back your space in, say, 2 years, and it cost you $600 a square foot to build it, it's only a little over $100, less than $110 per machine per day in win, in order to get a 2-year payback on building the the space you need for that machine. So there's definitely some potential for converting underutilized now buffet space or function space back into gaming, or adding space to the floor in order to get your machine count back up to where it was with a chair in front of every one of them instead of only half of them.
Yeah, you know, yesterday, Wynn Resorts announced that they're going to be going on a 4-day-a-week schedule in Las Vegas. So you check in on Thursday and you check out on Monday, and the casinos are going to be closed for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So this is what happens when you don't really take an honest approach and an honest assessment on what the situation is. When politics get involved in health and safety, and when you start listening to CEOs instead of to MDs, you know what I mean? And you know, and part of the problem too, you see that the you know, the politics of, again, of health and safety, and they're saying, you know, well, you know, we're not going to have a business if we don't do this. Well, you know, the tribes are showing that, yeah, you can have masks. Yeah, you can do non-smoking. And yet what you're doing is you're creating this bubble. And, you know, that really goes into the next part of this conversation, is that we're really trying to create these bubbles. And, you know, Jason and I were talking about earlier this morning, and, you know, it seems inevitable that you're going to start seeing the states going to start hardening. And you've seen some suggestions of that, like Connecticut was saying in the beginning, we're not going to allow people from New York, or we're not, Massachusetts was not going to allow people from New York. And I think we're going to start to see that more as we go through this winter season, if people don't crack down on wearing masks and health and safety. Now, the big thing to me, and the magic solution, the silver bullet to all this right now, seems to be rapid testing. What are you guys hearing about rapid testing? What do we know about rapid testing, and how legit is it? Is this the magic pill that we're all waiting to get back to normal?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but my answer to that would be no, in terms of a magic pill to allow us to stop taking actions. What it can do, taking preventive measures, what it can do, if used properly, is it can help us target those measures more effectively. Okay, react more quickly to areas where there's a potential for things to flare up. But you know, we talked a little bit about this before we started here. The announcement at the White House of Judge Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court, what they did was they tested everybody with a rapid test. Everybody tested negative. And then they said, okay, you're fine. And then they all gathered together, and they had their masks off, and they had direct, close physical contact. And while it is not absolutely conclusive, it is pretty suggestive that event was the cause for the outbreak in the White House, or at least for the spread of whoever had it into other people there very quickly thereafter. So the thing about testing is it's taking photographs, it's taking snapshots as you go along, and they tell you where you are at that moment, and then you have to react to it, and you already have to have in place steps that you're going to take. At this level we do this, at this level we do that. I mean, yes, it's great. You get a rapid test and somebody tests positive, you say go home. That's fine. Excuse me. But there are too many false negatives, and there are too many changes. You get tested today, tomorrow you get the disease. It's too easy to pick it up in other places. So that's where I think the rapid testing comes in, is to target the restrictions, and then to, obviously, when you talk about targeting restrictions, the flip side is being able to loosen them in places where you find that there is some space. Not eliminate them completely. They all should have still been wearing masks, but at least they could have, at least you could have some flexibility in how heavily you're applying things. So,
Jason, isn't that's what we've been talking about, right, brother?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things for you guys. Again, this is great work, and you probably feel like the second you're done with your study, 48 hours later, the variables have changed. And
yeah.
So
I read it. I wanted to jump out the window. You know what I mean? Thank God I live on the first floor.
You know, a couple of things. You know, 3 of the 4 major U.S. companies all have halted their vaccine trials right now. You know, they're paused. So that's not good news. and you know, and one of the things that I love about KlasRobinson is you guys will take a random research subject, and usually it's Matt, and he'll say, what's the economic impact of these RV mobile home operations that tribes have engaged in? And so let me ask you, Matt, real quick, just for those types of economic revenue generating activities that tribes have, since you've looked at a lot of these more tangential things to an Indian casino, the golf courses, the mobile homes, those types of activities, how are those faring so far through the pandemic? Just as a general proposition, what you see.
It's a case by case basis.
Okay.
You know, let's pretend I'm your average casino customer. I have 4 kids at home with me right now and have been home with me since March, homeschooling. I'm not going to pack us up and go someplace unless I feel safe. I mean, otherwise the whole staying at home, sheltering in place has been completely useless. At the same time, cabin fever sets in. So where do I feel safe, or where do I feel least vulnerable? A hotel still, you know, is a little bit scary. But as Jim mentioned earlier, RV parks, people want to go out, but they want to control their environment and their interactions. So an RV park, and not the asphalt parking lot RV park, but one that has a little bit of space in between, you control the environment around you more or less. So you control your safety and your boundaries. Golfing, another thing. Golfing, from the first day of the pandemic, when it was announced that golfing is more or less okay, with the, you know, you have your own carts and a couple of things in place. Golfing, which until recently, we, you know, when tribes are looking at, and I'm not saying go buy or go build a golf course, but, you know, golf was kind of slowing down in Indian country. And so what had happened was there's a lot of acquisitions. Well, now, you know, if you, there's gaming, but what other types of enterprises, you know, are booming or doing well during the pandemic? Golf, people are safe. They control their area, their environment. Even me on my worst golf day, okay, there's one, okay. For most people
definitely want to distance from you when you're golfing. People definitely don't want to be close to you when you're swimming.
Yeah, they stay clear. So take that into the casino now. Space. Where do people have space? How do they feel safe? That's why all of a sudden meeting and convention space is valuable space, but not for its initial purpose. You know, depending on your compact, depending on if the land's in trust, etc., it's a natural place to put machines and create more spacious areas. I truly believe the most successful tribal casinos that come out of this, at least during operations during the pandemic, are those where the customer feels safe.
And James, real quick, so given that, how are you looking forward, unfortunately, to the next update of the KlasRobinson economic impact on Indian gaming? I mean, you look at what's happened since August 30th, it's not been good, but just look at these past 2 days. You know, yesterday, 56,000 new cases. And to put that in perspective, the highs in July, when it was really bad through the Southwest, they got up to 66,000. So, and that was at the worst of those summer bad months. And we're already at 56,000. And the problem is, Jim, I just get the sense that now we just take these numbers for granted, and it's like a daily toll. And I don't get the urgency anymore of you know, people trying to slow this virus down. It's I mean, you had the head coach of the University of Florida football team saying he wanted a sold out stadium this Saturday for the LSU game. So what breaks this morning? 19 players on his team and 2 assistant coaches have COVID this morning, and now the game's in doubt. I mean, it's just insanity all around when I look, and I don't get where we're going to end up with this, other than
obviously we're going to have an all COVID league. You know what I mean?
Maybe
it's the obvious answer there, Jason. You answered your own question.
But how do you adjust for these variables when you're doing the next round of analysis, economic analysis?
Yeah, this again, you know, we look at, I mean, originally we had to look at the past primarily, and what we sort of felt we knew people's behavior under different circumstances. Now we have much more information. Each time passes, we get more. And, you know, as you suggested with your story in Florida, every time somebody gets a not so bright idea about what should be done or what's appropriate, the virus has a way of coming up and saying, yeah, no, not going to happen. So there's going to be more of that. I do hope, I can't guarantee this yet, but I do hope that once the election has passed, assuming that we don't have armed conflict in the streets, that we will be able to readdress some of these issues. And I don't honestly expect armed conflict, that's a joke. But we will be able to readdress some of these issues with a little less pressure. So whichever way it goes, yes, there's going to be a lot of fighting. Yes, there's going to be a lot of fussing. If there is a change in the power dynamic in Washington, there could be some lame duck shenanigans, but there is still at least some potential for the temperature to come down on the political side to allow for some stimulus, to allow for some refocusing of activities. But yeah, we're going to keep cycling between more acute crises and then more chronic, sort of low level, back and forth. You're seeing now Europe coming back for a second round. There's some indication maybe in the Northeast that things are starting to come back again. We're going to be doing some of that waving back and forth until people, you know, are willing to take the steps that they need to mitigate it. So, yeah, I mean, that's why we're saying that this transitional phase starts last month or this month and runs all the way through September of next year, where we're still not solidly into recovery. We're just in sort of transition from crisis acute, putting out fires into, okay, let's try to slowly work. It's like containing a forest fire. You get it 10% contained, then 20%, then 30%, then 50%. It takes a lot of time before it finally happens.
You know, and then compound that, like in California and Washington, Oregon, we're dealing with fires, and then, we have winter coming, and who knows what that's going to be like, especially here in California and the rest of the country. But, it just, we've come a long way, yet we have so far still to go, and I think really that's the message. I think, you look at the places where it has been successful, like New Zealand, and that's, granted, they're an island and they can restrict, travel and stuff like that, but they've really cracked down, and what it takes to suppress this doesn't seem like a lot of people don't want to reach that level of suppression, you know what I mean? Which is more movement of travel and stuff like that. But, like, again, it seems like a lot of people are putting their all their money on testing and stuff like that. And like I said, this announcement yesterday for the win is just really sad for that market, in a market that is, I don't think it had to be that bad or that extreme, but a market that chose to ignore the health and safety standards. And then, they're shutting the barn door after the horse is long gone, and
I think the win is instructive because remember, they partnered with Johns Hopkins to come out with one of the earliest manuals about how they're going to keep their facility clean. And it was, all the standard stuff and fine. But really what it shows is, like, if their partners on the Strip don't enact similar or at least as stringent measures, what's the point? I mean, those people are just going to wander into your facility and spread it anyway. And
they announced not testing but at the Cosmopolitan they have metal detectors now for guns and weapons and stuff. So that's what's going on. Everybody gets scanned now before you go into the Cosmopolitan.
Get scanned for guns, but not for coronavirus.
Yeah, we'll see, right? Yeah. Welcome to the new normal, Jason.
Well, I mean, yeah, that horrific shooting, but I mean, it's just crazy. And like you said, and I hope folks look at your report, Jim and Matt, because I think there's stuff in there that can allow them to adjust. And we don't have the problems of a win or having your competitors 20 feet away. which is good. But I think what you said, Jim, might be the most important thing, is that the cleaner and safer people feel at your establishment, the more likely they're going to come back. And I think that's a message we should probably be putting out more to our tribal casinos, because we're not medical experts and we don't have those kind of answers. But you got to create that sense of, that you're not going to get the virus at your dining or at the gift shop or something. So.
Yeah, no, it is definitely establishing that comfort level that you are doing what can be done. There are no good choice. There's no great option here. We're between Scylla and Charybdis. We're devil in the deep blue sea. So it's pick your poison kind of a situation. And it does take time, and there's nothing we can do about it but work through it. But there are better ways to work through it and worse ways to work through it, and that's what we're talking about here. It is not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. It is doable. And what Chairman said at the beginning, I thought was great, which is a point that we've mentioned in our reports too, is Indian country has been through a lot worse down through the centuries and has come out and remained strong and survived, and that will happen here too. There's no question of that.
Yeah, Jason, I think we talked about this last time. If it would have been our ancestors, they would have been a lot worse off than we are today. We have so much more opportunity than they have. So I think that's why it's really important that, we do everything we can to make sure that not only our customers are safe, but that we can continue the legacy of gaming and for our children and in honor of our ancestors too. And that's what this has always been about. Chairman, before we leave, first of all, I want to thank you for coming. Before we go, so how has it been on your reservation? How has it been for your casino? How have your people been handling the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I think that we are handling it well. I think that we're laying low, we're staying home, and then we're moving with, with our masks on, and, even in the store, for me, for sure, I'm walking this way, walking that way, staying out of people's way. And I've been to the casino a fair amount of time. That's the place of entertainment, and right from day one there, that I was proud because our gaming manager and our CEO and our regulators, and they're all on the front line there. As soon as you came in, nobody walks in that casino without getting tested. Nobody's smoking in the casino. Nobody's moving around without a mask. And there's certain ways you got to go in and out. And every place they're cleaning constantly. When you sit down, there's someone always like right next to you cleaning and washing and wiping. And it's what we got to do. It's a lot of work, but it's what we got to do. And so I think that not just the casino and not just the tribe, I think the area in general, doesn't reflect that. If we're if we have one of the this is one of the hot spots in the country, but at our casino we're safe and we're sound, and I think we're doing a good job. And again, I credit that to the leadership in both in our community and especially in our tribal governments in Wisconsin and throughout Indian country. I've been over to Michigan. I haven't been to any other places, but everybody's safe, and everybody, again, constantly practicing social distancing, constantly cleaning, and everybody gets checks. No smoking. They're smoking outside, so all those gamblers, we like them to come in, but they got to smoke outside. And I think we're, I think that we're, who knows what the winter brings, but we really got to get behind our managers and our leaders and help them and do our best to get through this. But yeah, I'm comfortable in the atmosphere that I am.
On Sunday, my tribe had our first tribal meeting since the pandemic. I believe our last one might have been in February. Actually, I think it was in February. And, we did it out in a parking lot. And it was like a drive-in theater. And we had over 350 tribal members show up. And, it was like, I was calling it Pachungachella, but, we were separated. We were in spaces, we were in our cars, we were watching it over our phones, doing a Zoom meeting so we could be there, so that we could be there to vote in person. And I forgot how much I needed that, to be around my people and to be around and see those faces, even behind the masks, you know what I mean? But the fact that was how we chose to get back to normal. And, you know, it was good to be back with all my people in one place and, you know, to do business and to get back to normal. But we had to do it outside, you know. And granted, we have 60,000 square feet inside that casino, but we chose to do it outside, you know. So that was the safest way for us to do it. And I think you'll see more of that as we crave that normality. And for us, as the people of Pechanga, that's how we chose to do it. And I have to tell you, it was wonderful to be back in the same space with my people making decisions, because every, you know, together we're better together, we're stronger together. And that's the one thing the pandemic has not taken from us, has been that unity of our tribe. And I hope that it goes the same for the rest of Indian country. You know, gentlemen, we're at the end of the hour. Actually, we're a little overboard. Chairman, I want to thank you very much. Matt and Jim, thank you so much. There's a lot to learn there. There's still so much more to go, but again, we'll have you guys back right around Christmas, and let's see how we're doing through this winter, and let's just keep up this conversation. Jason, do you have anything you'd like to wrap up with?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the work that James and Matt do for Indian country. You know, they share their stuff. You know, they don't always have to, but we appreciate the information that gets out there. And long, loyal, dedicated NIGA associate member, and
Yeah.
we look forward to keeping you in the fold. We have an associate member meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you know, all this stuff you're putting out there, it weighs on NIGA too. We're supposed to have an April show, 8,000 people in San Diego. You know, that looks like it's going to be a little bit hard to pull off right now, given the way the numbers are trending. But that's what we have. And you guys brought up great ideas today. I really liked what you said about those ancillary revenue generating businesses, Matt, and tribes should maybe start to look at those a little more. And that includes stuff like sports betting. You know, you don't need much more than a touchpad kiosk to get sports betting. And it just opened here in DC, and it's been doing bonkers walk-in sports betting in DC. So
Right.
Folks are, you know, looking to gamble, like you say, and there's still demand out there. So, but we appreciate your message today.
Yes, we do.
Thank you for
All
having
right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. We appreciate it. Believe it or not, we're going to be talking about food sovereignty next week, Jason, your favorite subject. I want to do something a little different. We're going to be doing G2E, and so there's still a lot of issues to talk about. It's not about the pandemic, but it's something still very important in the country. So thanks, everyone. Talk to you guys next week.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.